Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Roll 'em If You Got 'em. I am Dakota, and as always, joined with by Carl.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And in this video, we're going to do a Stark faction overview for the game for the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. All right, getting right into it. So the Starks, their general gameplay is they're kind of a charging, fast melee focused army. Um, They really have, like, above average melee, and then they have really, I would say, like, 1 unit is kinda like that top tier melee unit.
Okay,
Uh, and their general thoughts are they essentially get better towards last ranks.
sure.
Um, does it always work out? Hard to say, but generally rules are gonna be building up to that last rank.
So would you say that they're fast melee or fat melee?
They're fast melee, but their melee can get a little fat sometimes.
Okay, yeah. Ignore the typo there, folks. They're fast.
Yeah.
They're also fat.
Um, a few other kind of factors for them is they're going to have that like above average to higher morale. I mean, most everything in their army is like a 6 or better, and they have ways to buff it, manipulate it, kind of heal off it, do a lot of things off of it.
Right, right.
Uh, on the defensive side, they're kind of average to bad defensively, so they're kind of like mostly 4 ups or worse, and then they have like 1 or 2 units they're hitting that like 3+ range and are like actually tanky.
Right. So they don't fall into that glass cannon, but for the majority of their units, defense is a vulnerability.
Yeah, they're and then the right kind of leads into the next point. They're one of their weaknesses is like the ranged threats and kind of any of those hidden trap type of units that just like deal auto hits
Mm-hmm.
that they can't respond to, or they're getting hit from long range. Because usually like a long range shooting unit, they're gonna have to use an activation to move up to roughly 6-7 inches, so they have a reasonable charge, which means they're gonna like take some fire on the way in.
Okay.
And kind of the last thing that I'd say like exemplifies their gameplay is they have solo wolf units that are really great for missions. They pressure space uh, in a way like you can like run them around, and then your opponent's like, "Oh, I have this wolf in my backline." Yeah, it's not maybe that threatening, but it could snowball if they
Sure.
don't deal with it.
For sure. For sure.
And then it also like helps them set tempo. I mean, I know in the current state of the game they have a pass mechanic. These are kind of like the Stark's own pass mechanic, so they can kind of run high activation still. Use like a wolf to pass instead of actually getting passes. So if you
Mm-hmm.
play like a 6 activation, you can still run 8, and then when your opponent's like, "I'm gonna use a pass," you can be like, "Oh, I'll just activate this wolf and do nothing," and like back to you.
Sure.
Uh, which really lets them because they need to go when they want to go. If they're on like the wrong side of like the trading game, they kind of struggle.
Okay.
All right, so first thing we're going to cover now is the basic tactics cards. We will not be kind of reading through every one of the tactics cards or NCU cards or unit cards. So if you do want to read through them quick, just hit the pause button. We're just going to kind of roll through them, just talk about them as a general overview.
And while you're paused, go ahead and hit like and subscribe while you're clicking on stuff.
Yes. So as you can see through the Stark's basic tactics cards, a lot of them are focused off of units melee attacks, like before rolling attack dice and getting a buff, or charging. So after a charge has been rolled for rerolls, successfully charging, um, then like a little bit of movement,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously get a free charge, and then their North Remember obviously like clicks up all their melee, even just a little bit once a unit dies.
Yep.
So their basic deck is very much a take melee units, move fast, charge, and fight.
Yeah, I
That,
mean, all seven
that's
of
what
them there have something to do with a melee attack.
yeah. I would say I would grade their basic tactics cards like kind of in the middle. They don't necessarily like swing up like super hard. They're
Mm-hmm.
usually just generally giving like a generic buff on
Sure.
some of them with a little bit of kicker.
Okay.
Is how I would describe them. Onto the NCUs. So this is all just the in-Stark NCUs. Oh, did forget to mention, we're not going to talk about neutrals today. You can really splash them in anywhere. Starks are a great one to splash in, um, even on the NCU side, um, especially with Baelish as we get to. But these are all the Stark NCUs. Um, I think the 3 ladies at the top are kind of their best NCUs. Usually, when I'm building a Stark list, 2 of these are making it almost every single time between Arya, Catelyn, and Sansa.
Okay.
Usually it's Caitlyn and Sansa that are going to make it. I think Caitlyn, remarkably, she has not changed throughout the entire life of this game. They released her, she's been the exact same, no changes
That
since day one.
that is impressive for this
It,
game,
it
especially.
is extremely impressive.
I mean, it's
So
impressive for any game.
yeah,
This game, especially, where there's been borderline entire rewrites multiple times.
mhm, yeah. Uh, I think she's one of the best because she really does. She really just kind of activates the army because she is like you count as being on your highest attack die, or you use highest attack die. Some units have it where their highest attack die is last rank. Also, when you get into fighting, like she can buff those units that aren't that reverse order
Sure.
back to just normal, which you want to always basically have the most attack dice as possible.
Right. Of
Um,
course.
Sansa obviously she like helps you tutor cards, so like there's a couple two commanders I'll say they have great cards that help boost output, um, and everything.
Right. And then kind of going back to Cat, uh, because Starks want to flirt with those low ranks so much that you're gonna get that use out of her.
Then kind of the third one, I think she's more of like the flex NCU is going to be Arya. She just adds that bit of extra speed and some free movement on infantry, so it lets you kind of like close that distance before you actually go in and commit. She's out of the 3, I think the first one you drop to bring in like Baelish or just another NCU.
Mm-hmm.
All the Stark NCUs have had changes. They're all pretty good. They're just a little niche sometimes and maybe not as useful. All right, next thing here, on to the named attachments. Decent amount of attachments for the Starks. As you can see, there's most of the named attachments are 2 points and shitty. We're not even going to talk about them. We're just going to move on because like you'll never use them in a competitive situation because they just don't do enough for their cost. And you'll take basically the 3 boys on the right or Mira. Might not necessarily take Jaqen because he's a little different on his own, but he's really not bad. But essentially, all the Stark boys they have their own buff, and then you can bring along a 3-point direwolf. You can see here, Shaggy Dog and Summer. Obviously, they're going with their respective Stark boy, giving them different buffs. They all have kind of like different uses. We'll get to Grey when we get to Rob's commander because Rob can bring her with his attachment, his
Mm-hmm.
NCU, and his commander. So he has like 3 ways to bring a wolf, which is really cool. I think that's another bonus for his NCU that I didn't even touch on.
Interesting. Okay.
And then Mira, she's great because Hidden Traps is just a great order
Sure.
uh, that happens. So Stark's getting access to it. It's good.
Yep.
Um, onto the unnamed attachments here. These are just more the generic ones. None of them are like too crazy. They're all like kind of generally good. The 6 on the left here, they're more niche. Like the Soren Sword Captain and Umber Champ, they kind of share orders with tactics cards, so they get a little weird in their use. The Mormont Vet, it's like a defensive one, which he's all right. The Loyalist, he has some weird niche stuff, and then the 2 Crannogmen, they kind of just lend themselves. Well, the Warden lends himself more to a shooting army, which, like I said, the Starks just don't do in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Survivalist, he's not actually too bad. He, just does some stuff like with terrain and that. But the 2 champion, like the 2 I think are the best that you'll probably mostly take are the Winterfell Guardian and the Winterfell Champion. Winterfell Champion, for 1 point, you get critical blow and successfully charge. They become weakened.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's super great. So any unit you throw him in, you're ticking up, and then you're creating yourself like a defensive buffer with him. And the Winterfell Guardian, he is a cavalry attachment. You put him specifically in like Tully Cavaliers that have high morale, high save, and all of a sudden you kind of like deal some wounds if you want a Stark 1-point attachment in them.
Sure.
So he's
Because
pretty good.
you can pretty reliably count on that stubborn tenacity unless you set yourself up for failure. Flank charges, vicious, those sorts of things.
Mhm.
But yeah.
And even too, when you just pass your morale test, getting that little like tick up 1 wound, that could be big. You could be sitting at 6 wounds for like your
Mm-hmm.
Cavaliers. You pass that morale test, you go to 7, and now you're at full
For
ranks,
sure. For sure.
and that's a lot of dice for them.
Yep.
All right. Here is a big page on the units. We're not going to cover all the units now. So as we go through the commanders, we're going to kind of attach the commander with the units that share the keyword. That's when we'll touch on them. But this is just kind of the images for every Stark unit that they have. Um, I'm going to go through the next tier. I'm going to go through kind of what I'm going to consider my top 7 units. Not necessarily like the best, but they're ones that I kind of just love myself. And also they're pretty damn good, pretty damn good. And they might not actually like attach to a commander. So my top 7 units. Starting, what's your guess for number 7, Carl? I'll give you a guess on
Number
7.
7. Hmm. I'm gonna go basic Sworn Swords.
Ooh, very close. So at 7, I had the Stark Outriders.
Okay.
To me, you're gonna get these in like kind of the original starter box. So if you're new starting these guys up, you're gonna have access to them. They're a 6-point cav. They don't have like amazing stats, but they have a tactical reposition as an order. They can pass out some tokens. They can just do general good cav stuff that you're gonna just have instant access to when you buy like the original starter box, and they're good. Once you get some like better units, they might not make your list.
Sure.
But they can do some things. I think Starks, you generally want to take 1 unit of cav in every single list because they need like that extra speed.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right, on to number 6. Number 6 here, I have Eddard's Honor Guard.
Okay.
We'll touch on these more with Eddard, but Eddard's Honor Guard, they're actually a very good unit. They're probably like the top 3 or 4 like statistically units for this faction. I threw them at 6 though because you can only take them with Eddard as your commander. He
Sure.
is a good commander, and these guys are like a good version of Sworn Swords, but it's almost that like niche pick. I
It,
mean, they're one of the few units that has a 3+ save, and
right.
then
The commander requirement kind of pigeonholes you with these
exactly
guys.
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you might not like want to play Eddard, so you might never use this unit. But when you do play Eddard, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that unit is amazing." Um, and even Eddard takes him up. We'll talk more when we get to him though, because their unit card says this, but he attaches to them and he makes them not this. And then number 5, the basic Stark Sworn Swords.
Okay.
In your starter box, you're going to get 2 units of these guys. You might run 1 unit in every list. You might not run any once you kind of expand. But they're the basic backbone. They take every single attachment really well. They take all the cards really well. They work pretty much with every commander. They're just really good, flexible for like that baseline infantry
Yeah,
unit.
certainly that staple of like, hey, we want to get hit and then hit back harder.
Yep. Number 4 here, we have the House Umber Berserkers. And you might be like, man, this is a really high unit for number 4. So this unit is actually like statistically the worst right now if you look on a Song of Ice and Fire stats as far as unit elo goes across the game.
Okay.
I love them though, because one time when I remember one game I played against Carl, I had a unit of Berserkers that like one tap 2 units at once, and it was amazing and ended the game right there.
Yeah.
I've also had games, I think one of the best games we ever played, I had like a unit of Berserkers charge unit of Raiders over like some stakes,
To end the
and
game.
it like ended the game. We both tabled right there, and we're like, yeah,
Well,
we both win.
because we didn't know, we're like, do the stakes deal wounds before the attack? It was really early on in the game, so I don't think it
Uh-huh.
was clarified yet. And it was like, we don't know who just won. Like
And we're like,
everything's dead. Everything's dead. The table's empty. We don't
yeah,
know who won.
and we both won at that point, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
I also I think really play into that hit harder when you get on last ranks. I mean, obviously their attack line is unique. It's like the only one in the game. They're 7, 8, 9. So last rank they're 9 dice on
Hmm.
3s, which is awesome. And then even on last rank, they're a 3-up save, 3-up morale with 6 speed. So like they're like kind of weird tanky on last rank if you can get them there, if not like dead beforehand. So they got some. I think they have a lot of play. You do have to be very careful using them though. They are kind of a glass cannon.
Do they still come in the starter box? Because I know
They
the
do.
starter boxes have split now.
Yep, they have updated. They have new sculpts, and they are still in the starter box. And the new sculpts are awesome. The old sculpts, I think, are very like tough dude, where they're like walking, carrying their axes. They're not very like dynamic, but they're still
Yes.
good.
Yeah, very static sculpts
All
for
right,
sure.
all right. Unit number 3, Carl may not have seen this unit. I haven't actually used this unit, but just to me, reading the stat line, uh, is they're good. Like I would play them if I had them.
Hmm.
Which the House Umber Ravengers. So this is a 6 movement cav, 5-up defense, 5-up morale. I guess Berserkers aren't now the only unit that has it. Their attack is 6, 8. So last rank, they're 8 dice. On 3s, they have Sundering built in. Then their cool rule is if this unit has fewer remaining ranks than the defender, this attack gains vicious. Since they're cav, they only have 2 ranks. If you flank
Right.
charge like infantry, you're automatically fewer
You're
ranks.
yeah, you're sending them
Boom.
at infantry,
Uh,
and you're on last rank at 6 wounds
yep,
versus infantry. You're on last rank at 4.
correct. They're not getting the defensive buff, but they do get like they're fast cav. I mean, they're 6 movement cav. They're
Sure.
very fast.
Yep.
And like I said, the past 2 units they take Catelyn very well when she goes onto them at full health. They're as good as they're going to get, basically.
Yeah. Well, and then with these guys, Arya's free retreat too. Like it'll help keep them from getting bogged down in combat.
Yeah, potentially. I think Arya actually is only infantry,
Oh,
but there
maybe,
is
maybe.
other free retreats out there in the game. So yes, there's a few different ways you can trigger some free retreats.
Noted.
Yep. Unit number 2, another new unit, um, Winterfell Guard. So this is a 7-point unit, 4 plus defense, 5 morale, which is good, just a baseline. They have precision, and then they're cool because they're going after zones that you want as Starks anyways. So while you have the swords, your highest attack die value, awesome. If you control the maneuver zone, you get +1 to your defense dice rolls. So you
Oh.
go to that 3 up. And the thing that I love the best is they reduce attachment cost by 1.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of those cool 1-point attachments, you can throw them in these guys, and it's still a wash. You're actually getting some cost savings. So you can take the Winterfell Guard who comes in the box with these guys, throw them in. You have critical blow, precision, weakened on the charge,
Yep.
or you throw in like one of the start kids and make them defensive, or just something like just a lot of flexibility for a pretty good unit, in my opinion.
Nice.
All right, and then last but not
Finally,
least, we have the Tully Cavaliers.
for sure,
We'll talk about this unit a lot. They are a freight train.
a cornerstone of the Starks since the
Since
inception of the game.
Yep,
I mean,
but
I don't think Telly Cav were out right away, but they weren't far behind.
the one thing that makes them just so good is that they do have the ability to like swing up and have a lot of dice. But they are one of the few units that has like good defensive stats too for Starks. So
Yeah.
they just allow you to play the game a little bit more. So instead of you getting charged and killed, these units get charged. They might lose half their dudes. You can at least retreat them out, use your abilities, charge. Like you can play the game a little bit easier with these guys, in my opinion. Uh, and they're super cool. Like the models are great. And who doesn't just like love Lance Cav just charging shit? I do. Um, and everybody might know, like, oh, hey, number 1, you may have missed a unit that is actually very good. You're right. I didn't talk about the Cranigman trackers. Kind of. I don't think that's a unit that you're playing Starks to go, oh, I want to hit a 6-up save, 7 morale,
Yeah.
hidden traps type
Check
of
these
skirmishing
guys
unit.
out.
They're not really why you're playing Starks. They are good in Starks. They're kind of anti what Starks want to be, but like you can throw them in your list and they're good. They have some abilities. I mean, they're 5 points. They're not bad. They're just not why I play Starks.
Sure.
So, all right, on to our first commander here. So Eddard, Lord of Winterfell. Like I said, we're going to touch on the Eddard's Honor Guard here more now. So, like I said, they're a 3-up save, 6-up morale. Eddard actually makes them a 5-up morale with also -1 to panic rolls or failed panic test, -1
Right.
wounds. So they're only taking 1 to 2 wounds on failed panic test, which is awesome. And then whenever he performs attack, he heals other units. So it actually gives some like recursion to Starks that die a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He also is like going into that buffing. His cards are pretty good. He has like it's reroll panics, deal wounds when Eddard past panics, which I've killed a giant with before. And his big time card really is the Fury for the Fallen. So after an enemy completes an attack, Eddard's unit can perform 1 attack or charge action. So you could charge like my swords. Eddard could flank charge in, free attack, activate attack, and then you just like keep kind of churning like attacks and heals. And like
Right.
Sansa's very good at tutoring that card so that he can just like keep spinning.
Sure.
But that's Eddard. He's one of the best commanders. I would say he's like the second best in my opinion. All right, and then we have Robb the Wolf Lord. So Robb, he is like the maneuver commander. He's the one that you're going to use to like unlock these charges and like get in there, get out of there, kind of keep moving, kind of keep moving and grooving.
Yeah.
Um, he's got hit and run, which is the way to basically charge, attack, and then bounce out, which is good. And then he kind of messes with, uh, charges and other things like that. And then as you can see here, Grey Wind is also kind of like their ability is to debuff the hit if they're engaged. So you're taking Rob as your commander for free, and then you get a 3-point wolf, which is really great to like pad that activation stat.
Yeah, for sure.
And play the missions. Like she could, Grey Wind can sit in the back and on an objective and just be cool
Yep.
and win the game.
Yeah, the
um,
activations, all that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
it adds up. The next commander, I would say he's probably near the bottom, I think, wise as far as commanders. We have Roderick Cassell, Master at Arms. His attachment really isn't too bad with boldness and courage, kind of just upping that melee profile. But he's more of like a token type of commander that he wants to pass out tokens and then like expend those tokens for his cards abilities. It just gets a little weird because like you kind of just want to use those to make your attacks hit harder.
Right. Yeah, you're coming in looking to thump things with Starks already.
Yep.
Using those tokens to not thump things sounds a little counterproductive.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe it probably really comes down to a playstyle sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and he's kind of got like some of the only counterplay that Starks have within his cards, which is cool. But like at the end of the day, you just kind of I feel like you want to take what the Starks do and like crank it up to 11 with like the speed and like combat.
Sure.
Like he's not bad. He's just not necessarily what you want. Another commander. We're on to Brendan Telly, the Blackfish. This is his foot version. As you can see here, we have the House Tully Cavaliers and the Sworn Shield. So these units, they have the House Tully keywords, so they actually get a little bit of extra bonuses from his cards. Unfortunately, I don't think his cards are that great. He has the misfortune of having Warcry as a tactics card, which isn't like good as a tactics card because you're only passing out like one token, or if it's like on Brendan's unit, it's 2 tokens, which isn't bad, but it just doesn't do a lot. Refuse to yield is another thing, like, and also passes out tokens when you pass a panic test. But his one good card is Set for Charge, which is a free melee attack when you're charged. So he's a little bit kind of more grounded in like a defensive style, which just doesn't almost play into that speed necessarily. And getting Tully units is kind of hard, other than taking like 2 units of Tully Cav. So I don't think you really will use the Sworn Shields too much. They're a 6-point unit that are a little like they're slow. They have 3-up defense. But like I don't know, they're decent.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean that unit, you're pushing them in the middle of the table and hoping the rest of your army can dance around them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then even too, your opponent might be savvy and just be like, well, I'm just gonna not attack the defensive unit.
Sure. Yeah.
But like your defensive unit can't like swing hard at them back. Like they're kind of wet noodles.
If it can catch them.
Yeah. All right, and then we have his foot version. Then we're gonna go to his horse version here. His horse version, I think it could be pretty cool, but it has like a few weird things that just like don't necessarily, I think, work correctly.
Okay.
Which is so his attachment is he has Sentinel as an order, which is amazing. It's a free charge. And then he gets to reroll any retreat distance dice. There's no free retreats though in his cards. So like he's gonna spend an activation to retreat out, which you don't want to waste activations retreating. Like you don't want your Tully Cav, if he's in Tully Cav to get Sentinel, they're either charging and killing or they're charging and they're gonna sit in combat.
Right.
Like you don't want to spend their activation to bop out unless you hit the horse zone and you bop them out.
Yeah, the maneuver zone, but it's
yeah.
Yeah.
And then like Marshall's a heal, which is not bad, but you forego your free movement.
Yep.
Ride them down is pretty cool. And then I think Drogo even has this. We have Ride by Attack, which takes the unit's activation and turns it into dealing like a maximum of 4 wounds. which really with like House Umber Ravengers and Telly, you're going to deal more than 4 wounds if you just charge. Like,
Yeah, the ride by attack, as far as Targaryens are concerned, was always the play was always to put it on solo Jorah.
yeah.
Sometimes it's pretty difficult to pull off, to have the
Mhm,
room and the space to end where you need to, and blah blah blah. But that little solo tray made it real nice, and all you gotta do is clip that little corner.
mhm,
Pulling it off with things like screamers and outriders and things, it was always a headache.
yeah.
Always a headache.
Yeah, like it's not bad. Say you've like charged and you didn't kill, and then like the next turn comes around and you're like, oh, I'm gonna use the House Tully Calves activation to almost like
Essentially, just
misty,
march through them.
yeah, like to misty step
Sure,
basically through them to the other
sure,
side,
yeah.
kill them, and then like you're behind. But like it's kind of weird niche
But
in
if
a way.
you blow them up on the charge like you want to, and then you're
hmm
like, well, do I discard this card? Do I let it sit in my hand
hmm
longer?
Yeah,
It may have already sat in your hand for a round or two. Like,
right. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So it gets super weird. Um, yeah, Brendan Tully, like his model's cool. Starks, they have 3 units of cav to like make him work like at various points. So I mean, it's cool. Um, but his cards too, they don't trigger wolves. So even if like you get like Rob NCU and bring a wolf, like they're not triggering the cards.
Right.
It's real weird.
Yeah, it's the Cav.
All right, on to now Mage Mormont, Lady of Bear Island. Mage also suffers from having a very bad card as a tactics card in Sustained Assault. Which I'm going to read this one because it's so bad. You're going to read it and be like, oh, it's not too bad. But I'm going to read it and explain a little bit. So it's when a friendly unit is performing a melee attack before rolling attack dice, shares some triggers already. If
Mm-hmm.
this unit began the turn engaged with the defender, it rolls its highest attack die value. Okay, cool. And then if it's Mage Mormont's unit, it can reroll any attack dice. You might look at that and be like, oh, it's not too bad. The problem is in this game is you don't generally start engaged. You don't start activated engaged. It just doesn't happen. It's not a thing, especially for Starks.
Right. They either blew it up or got blown up.
Oh, and her units, so she has the She Bears, they're a 4 up save, 6 up morale, and then the Bruisers, they're a 5 up save, 6 morale. So, like, you're not going to, like, take a charge too well, or, like, you're going to get double tap before and killed before you can activate next. It's just not really, like, a great card. Uh, and then her other ones aren't really too bad. They're, like, healing cards, and one is a Don't Die card, which is pretty cool, but, like, it can be a little weird
Yeah.
as well. And then
Yeah.
she on her attachment isn't actually too bad with the new battle scars, um, where you're just like kind of adding better. So she's cool. Oh, and um, sustained assault is kind of conflicting with her even battle scars with rerolling attack dice. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. You're
yeah.
kind of getting the same.
Um, out of the units, kind of back to them. Mormont She Bear's a solid unit. You will see them in not just Mormont list. You'll kind of see them in every list. Having Warcry to pass out tokens to like buff offense is pretty good, and they have critical blow +1
Mm.
to hit when lower. They're a solid unit. All right, on to Howland Reed. So Howland is like the one weird different commander for the Starks. He's more of like a shooting guerrilla tactics type of dude. Um, you'll use his Cranium Trackers. You'll use the Bog Devils. You may even use Stark Bowman, which is the only time I'll ever mention Stark Bowman in this entire video, because like they just don't do what Starks want to do in like fighting.
Yeah.
Um, so he's very much like a like you act like a lot of his cards are triggering off the opponent activating or like start a turn, and like you kind of like do something negative to them or like debuff them or like hit them in a weird way. He's cool, like for that, but you're very much running like more of like a glass cannony like skirmishy type of list, um, which isn't bad. It's a different style of play. So if you're like playing, you're like I'd like to change it up a little bit. He's your change up. He's your curveball.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. He's got
Uh,
some more the shenanigans side,
mm,
some of the gotcha stuff.
yeah, some more gotcha, and then the Craningman Bog Devils. I've already talked about trackers. Craningman Bog Devils. They have Cranning Poison for dealing wounds with tokens, so they're pretty cool. I think they're 6 points. I'm not actually sure about that. They're a little fragile, but like they're actually not too bad to like having that if you want to like throw them in a list to like buff other units and like get poison out and just kind of be annoying a little bit. They're not too terrible, I don't think. All right, on to another commander here. Rickard Kardstark. I would also say he's in like this weird area where actually I don't think he's too bad. I just think some of the units don't necessarily like play well to him in a sense. Um, and he has taunt as a tactics card. I almost forgot about that. Which taunt has changed and is better,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a weird tactics card. I think. Basically, friendly. When an enemy unit activates, one friendly unit can. If that, I think you guys know what taunt is. Read it here. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words right now. But like that card could do nothing when you play it because your opponent could just be like, "Okay, I'm going to charge you," and then you're like, "Oh,
Yeah, you almost have to use it in a scenario where like
they can't
they
charge,"
know
or
what
like,
they're gonna do, you know what they're gonna do, and it's not charged the taunting
yeah,
unit.
yeah. And then his need for vengeance is cool to like you can like start around just like finish off a unit if you don't go first, but you give up that like NCU control a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and retribution isn't too bad. His two units here, the House Karstark Loyalist, they're a 5 point unit. They're pretty cool. I've used them before. I haven't actually used the new version yet, but they're almost like House the House Bolt and oh, I just forgot their name. Cutthroats. They're like the Cutthroats. Successfully charged, they're panicked. Then you have the Flail with Vicious. Um, then each of the defenders destroyed ranks, you can put a panicked or vulnerable on them. So like you really can like take up
Okay.
the output of that unit. It's pretty cool. Um, but another weird unit that just doesn't do, I don't think, what's intended purposes is the Spearman. Hold the line. Like I said, you don't activate engage usually, so that's a null. Stand your ground is like kind of cool for not giving a charge bonus, but these dudes have a 4 up save, 6 up morale. So like they don't really like get charged well and live too well. So
Right, right.
I've tried these guys multiple times. I'm not going to say avoid them, but they're just not the greatest. And they're 6 points when there's other, I think, better 6 point options that you can run. And then coming up here, we have our last commander, um, which is Great John Umber. In my opinion, I think he is the best Stark commander. I love playing him. He takes what Starks do, and he like cranks it to 11, and you just have fun with him. So he on his unit gets overrun and reckless heroism. So like he can charge a unit, just normal charge, kill it, overrun, and then auto six that charge in the overrun. So if
Right.
your opponent's like, "Oh, I'm gonna like space out a little bit," you can be like, "Nah, fam,
Like
like
I don't care.
12-inch charges, here I come."
You can space out all you want, but I'm gonna go with you.
Oh yeah. So like I've done some like crazy cool things with him. Previously when the Karstark Loyalist had they had precision built in. I remember one time I charged, I rolled like 3 6s on their attack, and then I played Berserker Tactics, and I dealt like 6 auto wounds on top of just the regular attack, and like blanked a whole unit. And I was like, oh yeah, and then overran and like killed another thing.
Sure.
Super cool. Berserker Tactics, kind of mentioning it here. This is one of the best commander cards I think the Starks have. It basically like takes everything and adds the opponent suffering like 4 more wounds. Um, just auto. Like you take 3, but like you deal out 4. So like everything gets just that like extra bump of like I'm gonna like kill you,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. Great card to tutor. Lash out. It actually punishes your opponent for charging and attacking you. So like they charge you, you kind of play into that bad defense a little bit where you lose some ranks and then you deal wounds back. Um, and then last stand basically is letting a unit that's probably going to die, like I said, you're a little bit glass cannony, to essentially go and get one more attack in before like you take them off the table.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
So like,
Which I mean that may be huge with their attack
mhm.
profile.
Yeah, because you can like, I'm not going to say like suicide a unit in, but you can just be like, I'm going to send this unit in. I know he probably their opponent doesn't have too many heals or something. You take House Umber units, you re-roll this attack dice, you have a great day.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about Berserkers and the Ravagers. They obviously all share the House Umber keywords, so like they get a few extra little buffs from his cards. And then we have the Great Axes. Great Axes, kind of a cool unit. They have a unique ability, so they have Vicious, and then only sixes on a defense dice rolls block hits. So if you have a 3-up save, only sixes save. So they're like automatically pushing you to as worst save as you can have,
Right.
uh, which is cool. So it lets you kind of like chew through some armor. If maybe your play group just uses like, maybe your play group is only Baratheons, and you're like, screw these units that have like 3-up saves all the time.
Yep.
Um, and they have Vicious with, Vicious Panic combo, so like they can really swing pretty hard. And they're not slow. I mean, they have like the general average defense, better morale. So yeah, I mean, like I said, Great John. I think he might like statistically be the best. He's my favorite. He's awesome and great. So yeah, so that really wraps up what we have for the Starks. Before I get into my final conclusions, Carl, do you have anything that you think you'd like to add in
Um,
before I kind of
I
get into
haven't. Yeah, obviously my song reps have been very low. Um,
Mhm.
I have not played against Starks in this latest edition, but if I were to play, well, Targaryens or Free Folk, if I played Free Folk, I think I would need lots of space on the side of the table to put my dead models and
Mhm.
trays. And then Targaryens, it would just be like hey, let's see how big of a charge somebody can make
Yeah.
before, you know, to kick this thing off because
Mhm.
nobody wants to start attacking. Well, yeah, I mean,
You
nobody
want to
wants
start
to be,
attacking.
yes, yeah, nobody
You
wants to
don't
be
want
on
to
the
be the first one to
receiving
die.
end
Y-
of the other
Yeah,
one to start for sure.
yeah.
So,
You don't want to be the first one to die. Is how it works out.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So just some of my final conclusions is to wrap up. Um, Kind of how the Starks play is like we've kind of gone through. They're very much melee focused. Everything's gonna be going that way in melee. Um, we're gonna want to do that. Uh, One thing too to know, like when you're playing Starks, you don't want to just like unga bunga charge in like round one or two. It generally doesn't work well. I remember when we first started playing, one of my phrases I think I said a lot was, "Well, we're gonna try this out,"
Yep.
and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, and we just tried it out. Go ahead and try it out, but you do need to play a little bit patient and like pick and choose when and where you're going to fight, where you like double up on units, just to take them out. You have the ability to pick units up pretty easily, but sometimes you don't do it as well as you think you would, or like you get like hit back on, or
Hmm.
like there's like some sort of counterplay that comes back at you. Also, a lot of other factions do a lot of debuffing. One thing you didn't notice throughout this whole kind of talk through is like Starks don't really have any protection from debuffs. So like your opponents are just going to throw them out there, and you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to have to like undo this the best I can without, you know,
Yeah,
without like working hard. Like you don't have a lot of like self protection,
for sure.
which can be a negative. Um,
It's always important to have protection.
it is always important to have some sort of protection.
Uh,
But yeah, so that is kind of my last thoughts here on the Starks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do make sure you go and like, subscribe. We will have more of these coming. Not too sure what the next faction is. Uh, Hopefully it's cool. I don't know which one it is. We still have Baratheons, Martells, Lannisters,
neutrals.
Greyjoys, Neutrals, and Boltons.
Yes, yes.
Boltons. Um, so
And
we have a lot of them coming on their way.
and let us know what you guys think of the format. I know this is kind of the third different format we've attempted. I think this is going to be the winner going forward. Free folk were too long, Targaryens were too short. This might be the bowl of porridge that's just right. So yeah, let us know, and if anyone's watched those other ones also, what you think about this. If you haven't watched them, go check them out. They're cool.
Yep.
And but besides that, I'm good if you're good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Um, like and subscribe our other videos, and join us next time.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.